Sup everyone, I'm your female otaku, and welcome to the very first episode of Monthly Manga Cast. I've decided to finally host my own podcast where each month we discuss our core lineup of manga, that being Boku no Hero Academia, Time Paradox Ghost Rider. I was originally considering having us discuss a volume of a recently released English manga. So, for example, for this episode, I was planning on doing volume 7 for Komi-san, but I thought that would be a bit too much, especially discussing an entire volume's worth. So, instead, by next month, we will add Boku no Hero Academia Vigilantes to the lineup. I've only just started the manga, so by August's episode, which is August 28th, be ready for Boku no Hero Academia Vigilantes to be a part of the main core lineup. Kowloon generic romance and a manga brought on by our monthly guest, which our guest for this episode is AJ from the cartoon Cipher, but he'll be on in a little bit. There will also be timestamps in the description, so if you want to skip to a particular manga that you are caught up with, or you don't want to get spoiled for any particular series, no worries. Check the description, and it'll also be the pinned comment. So this is totally unedited. I'm so excited for this. We're not doing this live, so it's all pre-recorded, so feel free to watch this or listen to this at your leisure. Maybe you're on commute or something, or you're on a road trip, or maybe you're doing your laundry chores, whatever the heck, you're gaming. I hope this helps you pass the time while you're on whatever grind. Each month we're going to be discussing the chapters that came out within that month. However, with this episode, since this is the first, we will be doing a little bit of recap here and there of some of the previous chapters, just in case if you're watching this in the future and you really have no idea what the heck is going on. Which in that case, thanks man for binge watching my stuff. I appreciate you. But before we start, I do gotta give a very special shout out to Giovanni Herrera for donating to my Patreon. If you'd like a very special shout out in the next video, stream, or what have you, then please click on the Patreon link in the description, as well as the links to my social media. I also have a link to my coffee if you just want to donate loose change. Alright, with all that said, let's get on to the first manga, which is Boku no Hero Academia. Oh boy, I finally caught right back up to the manga, and it's been a while. For those of you who have been a fan of me for quite some time, you might have even remembered when I used to react and review chapters weekly. That was 3 years ago. Man, what a time. That was back when the overhaul arc was first coming out. Isn't that crazy? Man, I'm so glad to be discussing this manga again. I'm happy to be caught up once more. Man, it is a trip with this manga. I don't know what's really going on with Horikoshi at the moment. I'm assuming he's just busy or taking some breaks. Good on the man. He's been a busy dude for the past 5 or 6 years, however long it's been. Because we actually only got 2 chapters this past month, which is kind of wild, honestly. I only just caught up to the manga in the beginning of July, so I was kind of confused if this was the new schedule, if Boku no Hero was turning into a bi-monthly manga. But I don't think so. I'm pretty sure it's just a break and stuff. So, however long Horikoshi needs, do what you gotta do. We love you, man. You're the best. With all that said, we are going to discuss some of the previous chapters as well, as I mentioned in the beginning of the podcast, just to catch you up to speed. So we are in the middle of what I like to call the war arc. It does have a technical arc title, but it's just so goddamn long to say. What is it? It's like the Paranormal Liberation Front war arc or something like that. It's just ridiculously long, and I'm like, listen, I'm not here reading a light novel, okay? So we're just going to refer to it as the war arc. And at the specific point where we are, Aizawa, man, coming through. Oh my gosh, he's actually gotten a fair amount of time to shine throughout this arc. Of course, at the start of the arc, it was incredibly sad when we found out about Kurogiri and how he's made up of his friend from high school, but that's a little farther back. But still, man, oof, what a way to start an arc. But Aizawa is doing his damnness to keep Shigaraki in check, because dear Lord, Shigaraki's gonna kill us all. Oh, God, I was arguing about this with my friends, because I was saying, listen, heroes should not kill. That goes everything against, like, their code and stuff. That's why freaking All for One is still alive. Like, obviously he's a horrible and dangerous man, but he's still alive. It's a part of that hero code. But I wouldn't be opposed to Shigaraki. I don't know. Maybe not breathing for a little bit. He's just too dangerous. I don't see them defeating him in this arc. Maybe he'll black out or something because he's not used to all the power. I'm not too sure. There's something's gotta happen. Some sort of trick. It's not gonna be an easy, or you could even call it a win. I don't think you can call it a win at all. Like, there has to be some sort of trick to play on Shigaraki in order to defeat him or have him leave the scene. Because, this is a dangerous man. Everything he touches will continue to decay for miles upon miles. We don't even know how many pro heroes are left after this. But damn it, man. Midnight, she went to go contact Momo and the others like, hey, I know we're not supposed to do this, but put these people to sleep and then skeet on out of here. And she's saying this when she's all cut up. Oh, boy, Midnight. I love her. What a woman. She doesn't get that much focus, but when she does, just, ooh, it's great. We love it. We love you, Midnight. And I'm so proud of Momo, man. I wasn't too sure what she was going to do. Because she could have very well just said, like, yo, we're all in danger and we're only students because we're like 15, 16 years old. We got to ski if we want to make it to our second year of high school. But no. She said, all right, let's do this. I'm so proud of her. Oh, man. Wow. Women, everyone. We love the Boku no Hero women. But going back over to Shigaraki, that whole situation is practically, you could say, a Mexican standoff. Your classic, who's gonna pull out the gun first and kill the other? Because Aizawa is staring this man down for dear life. Luckily, that other hero is around to, water his eyes. Thank God. I wonder how that feels, because for those of you who have dry eye, because I have dry eye, water doesn't exactly help. It makes it worse. You really need the solution, because just putting water on your eyes is not gonna help. I know that's a really stupid technical thing to say, but I just had to point out, like, yo, where are all my fans out there who also have dry eye and is just looking at this like, okay. It's so stupid, I know. But we got Bakugo and Deku out there fighting this guy. We haven't really got much into the fight, surprisingly. We were setting up to it, but we haven't necessarily gotten there. It was really just them, like, running away from Shigaraki, and then, Aizawa came out and about, and he was like, okay, let me hold this guy off. So we still haven't seen much of it just yet. But Bakugo, he wants his revenge, and I'm like, buddy, go for it. Don't hold back. Especially on this guy. Oh, man. This is going to be tough. It's going to be really tough. I was, like, talking about this with my buddies. And I noticed that we're already 20-ish something chapters into this war arc. And there's a lot going on. So I thought, do you think this could surpass the overhaul arc in, like, length? Because to this day, I believe that the overhaul arc is, like, the best, without a doubt. Most character growth, like, by far the most interesting villain, most complex one too. Honestly, this man is insane. The battles, I think, are the best too. There's just a lot of meaning in everything when it comes to that overhaul arc, and it's not just between overhaul, Eri, and Deku, with the other characters as well, of course, Mirio. And that was, I believe, 41, 42 chapters. It went on for quite some time. And nothing came close to that. The other arcs were either 21, 22 chapters or less. So this could stretch on to the length of the overhaul arc. At the pace we're going in on right now, they could also end it any second. depending on how Shigaraki is treated. So, really curious to see what the heck is going to go on there. There's just, like I said, so much shit going on. If we want to go back to freaking with Hawks and Dabi and Tokoyami and Twice, and then Toga's going ballistic, and then freaking Endeavor had to save Mirko because honey lost an arm and a leg, but dang it, what a strong woman. Oh my god, busting through doors with her damn thighs and ripping off the heads of Nomus. Like, oh, what a way to go. Smash that like button if you wish you were smashed up like that Nomu. I am so cringe. Oh my god. But I'm sorry. What a great first episode, am I right? Man. Yeah, so wild things going on. There is just freaking Mount Lady is fighting, or was fighting, Gigantomachia. And of course, that wasn't going to last long. Mount Lady's huge, but Gigantomachia is an absolute beast of a creature. And he's trying his best to head his way over to Shigaraki, which is another thing we really don't want. Man, how is this going to end? What's going to happen? I don't know. We will be getting another chapter, though, this upcoming Sunday. So I'm not too sure how often chapters will start coming out this time. Maybe it's already been announced and I just don't know it. I'm not too sure. But yeah, really looking forward to more. I hope, I want to say I hope everyone is okay, but I know not everyone is okay. We don't know how many pro heroes we lost. I doubt any students die, you know. But, oh yeah, I forgot. Freaking Fat Gum was trying to... Fat Gum is trying to get to Tokoyami, and we haven't seen him since, because then Tokoyami went to go and save Hawks, the good lad. Oh, love Tokoyami. Give Tokoyami more love, please. Please? He's great. One of my best boys. In the top 3. He went to go save Hawks, and then that's when Dabi was all like, oh, hey, yeah, your boy Hawks, he just killed a man. And Tokoyami's like, I don't believe yo ass. And then Dabi's like, okay, I'm gonna just light yo asses up. And he did. So they got away. But of course, like, fucking Dabi, man. I love this man. But my god, is he a little shit. That freaking... How annoyed were you guys when you saw his name being blacked out? Like, really? Really? We all know you're a Todoroki. Come on. No. I'm actually really into the theory that, besides the fact that he's a Todoroki, that he's Toya Todoroki, that he was most likely in the same, you know, secret hero society program thing that Hawks was in when they were, like, little kids. I don't want to get too far into this, obviously, because this is, like, really deviating from, like, the main chapters from the past month. But the fact that Endeavor said that he might as well have killed Toya means that he did something that pushed Toya into something which led to his death. Quote-unquote death. So, I think that he probably put Toya into the program, probably to help control his powers, since his powers are killing him, which fucking sucks. I love Dabi. Why does he have to be dying? So that's probably why Dabi knows Hawks' name, since no one's supposed to know Hawks' name. Not even Endeavor knows Hawks' name. No one knows. His name was supposed to be tossed out immediately as soon as he joined the program. My god. Which, by the way, let me put this out real quick. I'm pretty sure Hawks is fine. Like, I know he's beat the fuck up, but his wings are gonna grow back. Or his feathers, I should say. They're not necessarily wings. They're just a bunch of feathers. Because there's no exoskeleton, you know? So, his quirk is all in the feathers. They form the shape of wings, but they're not, like, actual wings, if we're going to be technical about it. But, yeah. He definitely has a scar on his face, which is going to look super badass. But everyone's going to find out the fact that he killed someone unless the Secret Hero Society covers that shit up. So, I think his position as the number 2 hero is threatened. So, yeah, Boku no Hero, absolutely wild. Love the way how things are going. Never a dull moments. Just great stuff, great stuff. And now moving on to Time Paradox Ghostwriter, featuring our special guest for the episode, AJ co-host of the cartoon Cipher. Thank you so much for coming, AJ.
I'm happy to be here. Like you said, my name is AJ. I am a cosplay model online, but I also run a channel on YouTube known as the Cartoon Cipher, where we talk about music, anime dubs, the anime dubbing industry, and other boring stuff that gets people really mad for no reason.
Oh, no,
Happy
I
to be
wouldn't
here.
say it's boring.
No, it's definitely not boring. You got that right.
Okay, so Time Paradox Ghostwriter is very new. It's only been out for 3 months now. How did you actually come across Time Paradox Ghostwriter?
By complete fucking accident. Seriously, I was just scrolling Twitter one day. I didn't even know this was coming out. There was no big announcement or hype or anything. It was just
Yeah.
somebody I followed on Twitter shared a link to it. It was free on some chapters are free on the Shonen Jump website, which is where I read it. And they said, "Hey, new Shonen Jump series. It's basically if Bakuman met Steins Gate." I'm like, "Oh, those are two things that I love very much and didn't think they'd go together at all. Okay, I'll try it." And the first chapter kind of hooked me in, and this has kind of been the first time I've been following a series since the very beginning. So I'm very curious to know where it's going to go, and I like theorizing what's going to happen next.
Oh, yes, this is definitely that type of manga where you can theorize every single chapter because there's always something new being delivered to the table. Like, honestly, especially in the beginning, it really subverted my expectations constantly. I don't want to talk too much about the beginning as I really would like to focus on the July chapters, but since this is fairly new and some of you guys may not know what this manga is, basically in the beginning, that follows Sasaki, who is a struggling mangaka. He's been assistant for who knows how long. He's like 25 years old, and he just can't seem to debut his own manga because there's no life to it. None of his personality is in it at all. It's all copy and paste from others, aka it's just Black Clover but a different font, and he just can't. He just can't seem to get picked up until one day he's about to give up, and then this is the strange part here. Lightning just strikes his microwave, and then
Yeah,
it pops out.
strikes.
Yeah,
His toy robot that his friend gave him melts into his microwave after lightning strikes his apartment.
yeah. And then it pops out Shonen Jump volumes from 10 years in the future, and this new Shonen Jump, like, it's legit. It doesn't have One Piece in it, oddly enough. He said it's all like new manga that he's never even heard of. And then on the cover is the debut of a new manga called White Knight, and that's really where our story begins. Well, sort of. That's like part one of where it begins. Technically, it really
just the
begins.
setup.
Yeah, technically, it really begins in the first chapter that came out this month. But we'll get into that because now he's plagiarizing. He's copying this incredible manga from 10 years in the future, and for some reason, it's not affecting that timeline in the future. So there's definitely some sort of, I don't know if this
Branching
is
timeline story.
yeah. I guess it's kind of like how they did in Avengers Endgame. You know, it's just a bunch of different timelines. Someone in the future, we find out, is contacting Sasaki. We don't know who, but he's directly talking to the microwave, and he's getting answers immediately. So I'm pretty sure this person can hear him too.
Yes, but like most shows, it's the very, very vague, cryptic answers.
Yeah.
Because we got to keep the intrigue going. He even says like, "Why me?" And I think the answer they gave was, "What's the square root of 144?"
Yeah, like it's like in code almost because it wasn't a clear message either. You're right. There was some like friction there. So maybe in the future, time travel isn't exactly commonplace. This might be something that this dude invented on the spot and was somehow able to get it to work.
Maybe.
Maybe he controlled the lightning bolt. I don't know. Maybe he predicted it. I'm not sure.
It's very hard to say. Obviously, the time travel is a conceit to get this story going because now, like what I was hinting at before, everything you mentioned before, you think at the beginning this is about a series about, kind of finding your voice and plagiarism and making it in this industry. Like I said, it's kind of reminded me of Bakuman, which was done by the same creators as Death Note. I love that series. I love any series that's about the struggle of an artist.
Oh, yes.
Because everything that Sasuke was told about, like, oh, you're just copying pasting what everybody else has done. Your voice doesn't your series doesn't really have a voice or a personality to it. But at the same time, he just wants to make something that everybody can enjoy.
Yeah.
Which is impossible. And skipping ahead, we now find out the reason why, in these past couple chapters, why he was sent to these Shonen Jump volumes. It's because the original author of White Knight... we're okay with spoilers, right?
Oh, yes.
Okay. The original author of White Knight, 10 years in the future, Itsuki Aino?
Yes, Itsuki Aino.
Who he meets in the current timeline, she dies prematurely.
Yeah.
Right in the middle of working on her series. And apparently that future hasn't been changed yet. So we still don't fully know. It's a little weird. We still don't fully know if this is like a strict linear timeline where it's anything that happens in the past affects the future, or if this is a branching off timeline because it's like, hey, you started White Knight. I assume this is what like whoever did this wanted him to do. Because White Knight is the key to Aino surviving in the future.
Yeah. It's a little strange because it makes me question about the person who's sending these messages, from the future, because that person, he knows what happens in his timeline, and that is that Itsuki Aino dies in the middle of creating White Knight. However, in the current manga's timeline, she's working on a new series called Anima. So that means Anima does not exist in the future guy's timeline, yet he knew that Itsuki would be working on this. So somehow he knows about the other timelines, the other branches.
Which is why I thought this series was a lot like Steins Gate, because that was a series that also dealt with different world lines, basically.
Yeah.
Every moment creates a different branching timeline. But like you said, the fact that this person who is sending these messages, who was originally sending these volumes of Shonen Jump to the past, is aware that, hey, a lot of things have changed, they haven't changed enough. She is still on the path of dying young. Or like dying maybe before her time. And the only way that we can stop this is if you beat her series. And context for the latest chapter, it took we got about 4 chapters this month. Yep. It's taking another chapter was supposed to come out yesterday at the time of this recording, but it's taking a week break. It seems like she's overworked herself.
Yeah, definitely.
And it's interesting that the past 2 chapters in particular have kind of shifted perspectives a bit, and I'm curious how time is working.
Yeah.
Because I double-checked this. So they sent it back, about 46 or 47 volumes of Shonen Jump was sent back to Sasuke.
Right.
So he has up until chapter 46 or 47 worth of storyboards that he can copy. And then after that, he's got to work on the series on his own.
Yep.
And in one of the chapters, he's like, okay, I got about 7 weeks of storyboards left. After that, I got to come up with the story on my own. And he's struggling because he knows, I mean, he's already had to shoulder the guilt of plagiarizing somebody else's series. And to the mangaka's credit, I buy why he's still doing this, because he already accidentally, he thought this was all hallucination. He already accidentally got that ball rolling and he can't really stop it.
Yeah.
But right after that, we get a flash forward. It says 6 months later, and that's when Aino stops working for him as an assistant to start her own series.
Yep.
And then in the latest chapter, Aino's editor is like, wow, you've been first in the surveys for the past 30 weeks.
Yup.
So I'm like, wait a minute, how much time has passed since the microwave's last message? Because if it's been a year, I'm curious how Sasuke has been keeping White Knight going, because based on the context clues, he's losing.
It did say half a year later when she left, but after that, I'm not too sure.
Well, after that, they said that's when her editor is like, you've been first place in the surveys for 30 weeks.
Okay.
30 weeks in a row.
Okay.
So I'm like, okay, so it's been 30 weeks after that 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
So that's almost a year.
Okay, yeah.
But even then, that means that's why I'm curious what's going to happen. Like, are we going to shift? Because we've been in her perspective the entire last chapter.
Yeah.
So I'm curious to know what's going to happen when we shift back to Sasuke's perspective, like how he's handling all of that. But one thing I'm very happy about with this manga is, and this is something actually the person who recommended the manga, they also pointed out on Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
I like how it shows it features a woman as being an incredible genius in creating manga.
Yeah.
Because you usually don't see that, and I love Bakuman to death. That is a complaint I have about it, in that it doesn't really portray women the best, both inside and outside the industry. Then again, the creators have gotten some flack in general for how they portray women. These are the same people who made Death Note.
I see.
But I'm glad that we're highlighting that she is kind of this like 1 in a million genius who can create something that everybody can enjoy. But I also like how the recent chapter is highlighting the downsides to that.
Yeah, because she's going down the route of an objectively like masterful manga. She said that she's going to make it completely transparent because she wants everyone to enjoy it. And so by doing everything completely by the book to the T, she was able to make a best-selling manga, but also lose herself in the process to the point where she forgot why she's even making manga in the first place.
Which is really sad,
Yeah.
but it also kind of makes me wonder how the message is going to be handled, because on the one hand, I think it's clear at this point that the thing that ends up killing her is being overworked, is kind of removing her, not looking after herself, removing herself so much from the product that, like you said, she's forgot why she was making manga in the first place. She's not taking care of herself. She's working on the series completely by herself because she doesn't not want anybody's personality, anybody's touches to taint the manga. She's basically made, like you said, an objective, non-personal masterpiece. And the question kind of becomes, well, at what cost? Because I do know for a fact there are a lot of people that might be willing to make that sacrifice. But I also kind of think about so many other Shonen Jump manga or so many other movies or TV shows that had so much of a personal flair to them, and that's part of the reason why they're masterpieces.
Of course.
I'm wondering if the message is I wonder if it's one of those things where in order to prevent her from dying, she needs to kind of learn that, hey, you're the one who makes the product at the end of the day. And therefore, you kind of need to take care of the vessel that's creating this work.
Yeah.
Because even with White Knight, they really hammer in the fact that this is an objective masterpiece. Nobody else could make something like this. Everybody is enjoying it. And then when he takes over, when he tries to put his own spin on it to interpret how the story is going to go, it's not as good. It's not bad, but it's not as good.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I'm very curious what artists think when they watch this, because whether you're a cosplayer or a content creator or an artist or a storyteller.
Well, like we're content creators ourselves, and
Right.
we cosplay and stuff like that. So how do you relate in this situation to either Sasaki or Itsuki?
Going a bit to the beginning when Aino confronts him and she's getting right in his face, and it's like, what do you have inside of you that nobody else has? Like, what is it about you that made this amazing series that I thought only I could make? And he says nothing. That hit me really, really hard, because bringing it full circle to the beginning of the series, it's when I make content on YouTube, or when I post a cosplay photo or something, there's always that pressure of, I gotta do something that nobody else has done, or that nobody else can see before. There's always that pressure, because it feels like that's the only way you'll be successful, is if you reinvent the wheel, you do something that nobody else has thought of before. And I've even spoken with other content creators where they say, where if you ask them like, oh, why did you make this video? Why did you talk about this? And they say, well, I did it because nobody else was doing it. There is a lot of truth to the idea of there's merit in making something new and personal that nobody else has seen before. But inversely, it's daunting, it's terrifying. As an artist, it's like, I feel like everybody asks themselves that question at least once, where it's like, is what I'm saying worth anything?
Yeah.
Do I have any merit that can connect with everybody?
That's actually a good point, because I feel like both Itsuki and Sasaki have lost, or like don't believe they even have any self-worth at all.
Yeah.
Honestly, like Sasaki's a slave to this idea of Itsuki Aino from the future, and like appeasing her and everything, and the fact that she's gone and he's on his own when it comes to making more chapters is really tearing him apart. And as for Itsuki in the current timeline, she lost herself quite a bit ago. Like her origins, like when we saw that she's talked to this old guy who tried to become a mangaka, and he was like, oh, I couldn't really make it, but I really hope that you do. And she was just getting started with White Knight, and then she sees, Sasaki's debut chapter of White Knight, but to perfection, because it took her in another timeline 10 years to perfect White Knight. Now, whether or not White Knight in the future includes Itsuki's personality, I'm not too positive, because like you said, everyone says it's like a technical masterpiece. So, but that it's still a little hard to say whether or not she added any bit of herself, because right now she's just so focused on everything being transparent, following the hero's journey to the T, like just everything has to be perfect objectively. And she collapsed because of that. That and the fact that she has no assistance. So that really sucks.
Yeah.
Oh, man. She could be killing herself faster in this timeline.
Yeah. And it's tricky, because I wonder... Well, it's two things I want to harp on. The first one is kind of going back to what you said. The reason why she got into making manga in the first place, after she met this old man, she's basically this little girl that doesn't really know where her place is. And then, I think like everybody, she becomes enamored with an art form and is like, I want to make something that everybody can enjoy. And that's such like a simple and pure idea. It's impossible. Like...
Absolutely.
I wonder if they're really going to... Like I said, this is kind of one of the... It's not so much a complaint, it's more like an eyebrow raise. Like, they focus so much on hyping up the fact that this is something that everybody enjoys. I'm like, does everybody enjoy it? Like, I wonder if we'll ever see somebody in this universe who is like, I don't like this series, and what that does to people like Satsuki or Aino. Do they try to cater to that one person, or do they move steadfast with what they do? Because the message seems clear.
Yeah.
I think, or I hope that the message is that there is no such thing as a technical masterpiece, because any route you take to an extreme, there are going to be consequences. If anything, maybe the thing that, this is a prediction, but maybe the way that Satsuki ends up beating Aino is that he does find his own voice. He does find the thing about himself that he can inject into this story that nobody else has.
Yeah.
And maybe that knocks her out of it. I don't know. This doesn't feel like it's going to be a long series. I would be shocked if it lasts more than a year.
Oh, wow, really?
Because it doesn't feel like a story that needs to do a lot. Basically. I don't need the super sci-fi. I don't need to lean into the sci-fi and explain the time travel and everything. I'm perfectly fine with that being a conceit. If you look at it just as a story of these two people kind of finding their voice as artists, I don't think that needs to be a long story. And if anything, I feel like it's better if it's not.
Okay.
Because you don't want to drag out a message like that and have it potentially get muddled, because I can see a lot of artists and content creators resonating with a struggle like this. And I don't want that to get muddled.
That's
basically.
true. That's true. Like, say this is all but an arc and Itsuki gets saved, and then the next arc is, okay, how the heck does time travel work, or something like that. Like, that would definitely ruin the message for sure. I don't know how heavily they're going to dive into the whole time travel aspect, but I am certainly curious, especially since I wonder how the heck the guy in the future knows all these other branches in time and is able to directly communicate with Sasaki in an instant. Like, freaking messages formed on the microwave immediately. So I'm just like, how are you hearing him? I don't get it. We did.
Well, I also like the way that things are being communicated with the iron sand.
Yeah.
Embedding itself, like that's really cool and unique. And we have to find out like who it is or how it is. Who knows? Maybe it'll be an interesting time paradox where the old man that inspired her was actually Sasuke from the future or whatever. And it all came kind of full circle. Where, like, he kind of helped get her on this path, and now he's like, hey, she took my advice a little too far. Make sure that she is okay, please.
Oh my gosh. I'll hold you to it.
There,
first major theory, I'll hold you to it.
No, because that's also why I like shows like this, because there's a lot that can be gained from theorizing, as far as the plot goes.
Yeah.
But no matter what direction it goes, I hope it doesn't lose that struggling artist message about finding your voice.
Yeah.
Like, don't muddle that, because I honest to God think that is the best thing about this series so far, and I think that's why, personally, that's why it hooked me. Because I just love stories like that. It's the kind of thing where I can finish a chapter or finish a story like that, be like, okay, now I can get to work, because it just makes you want to, it makes you want to scream your voice louder, kind of.
Yeah.
It's an inspiration up. Maybe I'm easily manipulated, but it's just something that kind of speaks to me personally.
Oh, no, for sure.
And here's the thing. The thing about Satsuki and Aino is that it's not entirely their fault that they are the way that they are. Because even Satsuki, he went through it rough at the beginning.
Yeah.
When everybody is basically telling him, like, imagine you've worked really hard on something, and I get it, like, the manga industry, especially to get in something like Shonen Jump, it's a dog-eat-dog world. You have to be willing to, like, tear other people down to just like to stand on your own 2 feet.
Absolutely.
Because if you waver at all, then you are done. It's not a great industry, if we're being completely honest. And I like how they kind of covered the basics of everything right at the beginning, but they focused more on the fact that you're worthless, you don't have a voice, you're not special. Like, only people that have something interesting to say are worth anything in this world, basically. And I'm like, that hurts. Because I've definitely had moments like that where, I mean, I even just put out a video that isn't really doing well, and that's partially because it took so long to make it.
Yeah.
But it's the kind of thing that hits you where it's like, well, okay, I guess that wasn't... I wonder if... Is it just the circumstances of YouTube, the algorithm, and everything? Or is it just maybe my voice wasn't loud enough, maybe it wasn't special enough? Nothing I can do now except go back to the drawing board and try again. And I know a lot of artists get defeated by that. I mean, he almost quits.
Yeah.
Before this whole thing starts in motion. And to be honest, I feel that.
Of course. Definitely. Especially since for how long he's been trying. Because he had such a great start in the beginning. Like in high school or something like that, he won an award. And he couldn't pick up after that for years. And he's like 25 now. Or at least at the start of the manga, he was 25. And still nothing. Constant rejections.
Well, it's also a difference in setting. Because he was a big fish. He lives in the countryside. And everybody loved his stuff back there. Yeah. And he's like, oh, what if I could bring this to everybody? And then he goes out into the world and it's suddenly, well, not everybody wants to listen to what you have to say. And I think as content creators, you there is that kind of conscious choice in the back of your head where you're like, am I only good to a subset of people? Can my voice reach everybody? And, you know, sometimes that's enough for some people. Oh, okay, these people support my work. Cool, that's all I need. Yeah. But I think once you get into the business aspect of it, when you get into I want to make this a career, I want to be bigger, you kind of need to hope that your voice reaches enough people that it's enough to sustain yourself. Yeah. And they're already fighting, working against a stacked deck because Satsuki and I know they're like, I want everybody to objectively enjoy this. And I'm like, that's not going to happen at all. But it's that idea of perfection can never be achieved. Of course. But it's still worth striving for. Because you can at least get as close to it as you can and like always improve yourself, always be better. But yeah, no, that there is a dark side to walking down that path. There's way more people I feel like Satsuki than there are people like Aino.
Yeah, I feel like people have thought of turning down that route that Aino's currently in, but most don't really fully go through with it. Because in the end, it's hard to avoid adding a bit of yourself into your creation. Like, heck, even when artists draw, they make the faces that their characters are. you know? Yep. Like, if a character's angry, they'll be angry. At the same time, that's them feeling something. But I know at the moment, she's just deadpan and exhausted. There's nothing within her. And it's like, how far will you go for perfection? Or do you just do you want perfection for everyone? Or do you want perfection for just yourself? You know, like, do you want to be happy or do you want to make everyone happy? Because, oof.
and if you do want to make everybody happy, at what point are you willing to compromise?
Oh, yeah.
To make everybody happy? Because she's so concerned with making everybody happy. Like, we're getting into her overworking herself part. And, like, just shutting everybody out. I don't think that fixes the core problem of she is emotionally numbing herself. Yeah. To make this. And is it worth it, I guess? Like, if someone came up to you and said, hey, here's a list of things that you can do to make your YouTube videos or your cosplay posts just blow up. And it's like, in order to do, and following these steps will remove any sense of personality, any sense of personal identity from the project. Like, you need to emotionally numb yourself so that way you don't do it accidentally. Would you be willing to go down that path?
No, because then I wouldn't be Sloan the female otaku.
Yeah.
I'd just be a
for
robot.
us, it wouldn't be the cartoon Cipher.
Wait.
It's...
Robot. I just said...
Oh, yeah, robot.
Wait a minute. Wait! It's symbolism! Wait a minute!
I didn't think about that, yeah.
They both have the robot.
Actually, that's another thing. She is the exact same robot as him.
Yes.
And it's...
That was given by the guy.
Yeah, the old man gave it to her, and I think his best friend gave one to him. And it's like, the robot is clearly the catalyst for the microwave to make the whole time travel thing work. But it's like, they both have the same robot. Why is that? Maybe that adds credence to my theory that this is really him that the old man was really him from the future. Or something.
It's possible. The old man doesn't seem that old.
He seems pretty old. He looks like he's maybe in his 60s or something.
Yeah, but he's not, like, in his 90s.
No.
So, like, I can believe that it could still be him 10 years in the future.
And the fact that he's like, I'm going to go on a journey myself. He didn't die. So,
no.
Did he just go back to the future and leave his stuff with her? I don't know. I'm very curious if that is the thing. That is my working theory for now. But going to the emotional part of it, you're right. It wouldn't be your stuff anymore. But that's kind of the compromise that some people need to make sometimes when it comes to making content. A lot of the people that manage to make it strictly off of who they are the lucky ones, are the ones that manage to make it work. And there's still some compromise there. Don't let anybody tell you that, like, all the big Anitubers, all the big cosplayers didn't have to compromise or analyze something. It's never that easy, no matter how much it looks like it. But at the same time, it's kind. I did this video a while ago about the struggles of being a content creator, where I basically talked about. Ironically, that video didn't do well either, but I kind of talked about this idea of how we're always comparing ourselves to other content creators. And it's like, they managed to make it work, why can't I? Like, I'm working just as hard as them. I'm yelling just as loud as them, basically. Why isn't it working? And, some people will take the route of, I'll just copy the people that are successful and hope it works for me. Others are like, I'll do the complete opposite and hope I find an audience there. And then you have people like Satsuki and Aino who are like, I'll just analyze the fuck out of everything and devote myself 100% to the thing that works and always works, and any deviation from that is wrong.
Right.
And the sad thing is, there is a success story in all of those. So then it becomes even harder from an outsider looking in, being like, well, okay, if there's there's a binary. It's, if there is a proven strategy to make things work, why isn't it working for me when I do it? And on the other side, it's, well, if it's just a matter of do something unique, do something about you, do something that, do the thing that makes you special, and you do it and it doesn't work out, then what kind of message is that sending? It's really hard. And
for sure.
And daunting, because we all initially do this for fun, but I will not mince words in saying that I would love to do the thing I love or talk about the thing I love as a career. And every day that things don't work out, you gotta ask yourself, well, will I be able to make it work?
Yeah.
I don't know. And there may come a point where you need to make a choice similar to the one Satsuki was going to make in the very first chapter. Because I don't see any Steins Gate-esque time travel thing to come and tell me exactly what I need to do to make a masterpiece. But in the meantime, you just kind of need to do the best you can. And I hope Aino realizes that she does have a voice, and it's okay to let that voice be heard, whether she's successful or not. Same thing with Satsuki. Once, all of the guilt and pressure finally gets off his back, because Jesus Christ, I do not envy him at all.
Oh, yeah.
Imagine someone came up to you and said, hey, so whether or not this person lives or dies completely hinges on whether or not you can make a masterpiece. Have fun.
Also, here's the winning lottery numbers, just in case.
Just in case. And that is actually another thing that I greatly admire about this manga. I'm surprised I don't hate Satsuki.
Oh, why are you surprised? Because you felt for him.
I did feel for him.
Yeah.
I did feel for him, but the whole conceit itself of, I can buy why he made White Knight at the beginning, and because he thought it was all hallucination. He's like, oh, that was all hallucination. That must have been like what the magic story that my brain had all along. And then when he realizes that he plagiarized somebody, and he's seriously considering, oh shit, I can't do this. Basically, the story needed to do that extra legwork to be like, hey, he's still a good guy, even though he's technically stealing somebody else's work.
For sure.
And here's the thing.
I like that. The fact that he even went up to the editor and he was like, listen, I can't do this. And then the editor was like yelling at him, like, no, you can't just not do this.
Yeah.
So he was practically forced to continue to follow through. And then he was like given his own staff, and then they're pretty much given his own anime too right off the bat after the first chapter. And then for a while he became a slave to the art, trying to emulate, copy the art, as best he could, and kept on relying on Itsuki, being like, hey, is this good? Is this good? Even though she was the assistant, and she wasn't that Itsuki I know from the future. This is current 17-year-old Itsuki. So he's just always a slave to this manga, in some way, shape, or form, whether it be the art or trying to progress the story exactly like the manga, always relying on it. And now he has to rely on himself, but he's not. He's trying to think like Itsuki, and he can't.
Because the world is kind of telling him what you do might not be good enough. And that's kind of it. It's not... And that's why I like him so much, because unfortunately a lot of what he's doing is dictated by the world around him, by everybody else.
Yeah.
It's... I was surprised because I thought that almost like they were just kind of ignore the fact that he's plagiarizing somebody's work until we got to the plot point of, oh, you actually need to plagiarize this person's work because they'll save her life. I like that we took a few chapters to be like, no, he feels guilty. He feels terrible. Yeah. He's kind of suffering a lot. Mm-hmm. But it's not just like a guilt kind of thing. I think it's a social inferiority thing, because...
Oh, for sure.
Nobody, aside from his friends in the first chapter, in a flashback even, nobody has really told him, hey, you're doing a good job. Like the work you are doing is good.
Yeah.
Anytime he tries to put his own voice, put his own spin, or interpret things his own way, it's almost hammered in that it's not good enough. And I wonder where the turning point is going to be. And this is what I'm curious about with this is what I meant before when I'm curious about the message of the series. Because right now it's operating under the assumption that it is possible to create an objective masterpiece as long as you remove yourself from the equation. The only downside is you will die prematurely or suffer physically or emotionally. I need a bit more than that, personally, because unfortunately, I know a lot of people that are still willing to do that to be successful. In fact, I can't even say with a straight face that I wouldn't do that to be successful. So I wonder where the if we'll continue on this path, or if there will be a turning point where it's like, hey, turns out you have a voice after all. You just needed to go through all of this to find it. Because sometimes the hardest part is just kind of finding that one thing about you that does differentiate you from everybody else. That's why I like Bakuman so much. That's also a series about like these two kids that are trying to be make it in the manga industry, and they don't find success until their third series, and like almost a decade of work.
Wow.
And the only way they could make that third series is because of the failures and trials they went through prior to that point. Like it's very clear, wow, this series is great. We could not have made this if we did not learn from the thousands of other failures that happened right before this one.
Mm-hmm.
So I wonder what's going to happen. That's why I'm very curious to know what's going to be the answer, more or less. What's going to be the thing? Because I feel like the answer that this story gives is going to be the thing that saves everybody. And that's a very, kind of in a meta sense, that's ironically a very heavy thing for the mangaka to work on.
Yeah.
It's basically like, oh, this story about like finding your voice and the thing that like you can say that nobody else does. And now I'm sitting here like, okay, well, what do you have to say, mangaka?
Oh my gosh.
So like, but I do have a bit of faith, and I really hope everything comes together. I'm waiting on bated breath, reading this every week, and I'm happy. I'm happy and excited for what's to come.
Same here. Definitely looking forward to more. I think that moves us on to the next manga, which AJ will be taking over, and that is Dr. Stone, because I don't read Dr. Stone, so it is all you, buddy.
Okay, so I gotta do a little bit of legwork. I apologize. I know that we're recounting everything from the past month of chapters, but considering we are very much in the middle of an arc, let me do a little legwork to get us to this point. So for those who don't know, Dr. Stone is a Shonen Jump manga that is created by a two-person team, Richiro Inagaki and Boichi. Boichi, I believe specifically was the artist who worked on the Ice Shield 21 manga for some of you old sports fans out there. But yes, it is basically a story that takes place in a post-apocalyptic future where in modern time, a cataclysmic event turned everybody to stone. And Senku, our main character, managed to break out of being petrified over 2,000 years later, where Earth is basically back in the Stone Age. And being a genius and being a child prodigy and a genius, he's trying to use science to bring the world back to the modern age. And he's faced a lot of opposition, some in the shape of friends who rely on brute force, and others in the shape of people that literally became villains because of the societies that were created in the wake of this stone future. But now, Senku might have actually met his match in terms of in his own field. Before, Senku was always up against people that were smart and clever in a specific field. Whether it was the first villain, Tsukasa, who was basically the brawn to Senku's brain, and we had a villain in the last arc. I forgot his name. I just call him Jafar because he looked so much like Jafar from Aladdin, who was basically a conniving old man who used lies and deceitfulness to get his way. Now, the current villain of this arc, as Senku and his team make their way over to America in order to take advantage of America's cornfields, so that way they can procure more alcohol, which is the secret ingredient in the revival formula that Senku developed that depetrifies people. They ended up coming across Senku's old mentor, Dr. Zeno, who was a NASA scientist who was a colleague of Senku's father when he was an astronaut. And turns out, this was somebody that Senku had a lot of online contact with when he was a kid learning about science. He was more or less the person that Senku would always go to for questions. And they only met once, but he is basically everything that Senku strives to be. Except for, of course, the fact that he's kind of an openly evil dictator. Like, they made, in these past couple of chapters, some of which were flashbacks to explaining Senku and Dr. Zeno's relationship, they straight up asked him, hey, if we were in the Stone Age, what would you do? And he's like, I'd use the power of science to be a dictator of the new world. I'm like, okay, villain, got it. And currently right now we're in a battle of wits, where Dr. Zeno and a bunch of people from America that he's revived, which is very interesting because it makes me wonder how the anime and inevitable dub is going to handle this, because technically I guess a lot of these characters aren't speaking Japanese. They have captured one of Senku's comrades, Gen, who is acting kind of as a spy, so they sent their own spy in the form of Luna, who is basically trying her best to expose who Senku's science wielder is, in this case Senku, so that Dr. Zeno and his team can take him out and be like, okay, whoever takes out the opposing team's science user wins, basically. And at first they tried to trick him by making it seem like the scientist of the group was Taiju, Senku's best friend, who is not the smartest person on the planet. But eventually Dr. Zeno finds out that it is in fact Senku, his old protege, who is in fact in charge of this team, and he actually has to face a moral quandary where it's like, hey, where Dr. Zeno's best friend, he's basically in a tree with a sniper rifle ready to snipe Senku from a distance, and he's like, hey, this is your last chance before I totally just murder this 19-year-old boy. Are you sure you don't want to try to convert him to our side or anything? And Dr. Zeno has a moment where he's like, it's a shame, but no, Senku would not accept the world that I want to make. Because I'm evil, and he's a decent human being despite everything. So yeah, kill him. And the chapter literally ends with Senku getting shot after making a quick bulletproof vest out of some materials that he just quickly grabs. So the next chapter we'll be finding out exactly how successful that quick makeshift bulletproof vest works. And that is currently where we're at in the current arc. I'm not even sure what the name of this arc is. I guess you could call it the American arc, because we are in America right now. And as for what's going to happen next, obviously I don't think Senku is going to die, but this battle of cat and mouse is kind of interesting because both are basically stationary, sending their people from their teams to the other side to try to get the upper hand. Senku already sent some of his friends, and we haven't seen them in a few chapters, so who knows, maybe they'll do a fake out, and the next chapter will immediately cover what Senku's team is doing. I'm curious how they'll get the upper hand on Dr. Zeno, and I'm also curious to know what's going to happen after this arc, because it's possible with everything that's happening, this might be the second or third to last arc of the series, because we already know that Dr. Zeno is not the big bad guy. The big bad guy is whoever turned everyone on the planet to stone in the first place, the Dr. Stone, if you will. And just before this arc happened, we got some interesting information that whoever might be doing this might not even be on Earth. They might be on the moon. So in this stone world, they need to make a rocket or a vessel that is willing to take them to the moon. I guess it helps that conveniently the next villain of the series was a NASA scientist who could definitely help them make a vessel to the moon. In fact, it seems like he's already got a lot of stuff that could potentially move them forward with doing that. So I don't think Dr. Zeno is going to die. I think he's definitely going to be like the last villain who was turned to stone. But I definitely do think that I'd be shocked if he dies, but I definitely do think this is probably going to be a case like with the other mini villains in the series and the first main villain, where he'll most likely be converted. Maybe he'll rediscover what science is really supposed to be. Like, it's not supposed to be a tool to basically control everybody, because I'm getting like literal Nazi flashbacks about that. I'm not saying he's Hitler or anything, but you know, some of the biggest catastrophes of the planet were literally, hey, science gave me an edge over another society that I could view as lesser, so I'm going to use it. I don't want them to do that. Although it'd be interesting if they kind of bring that up, like, hey, you're kind of doing what a lot of horrible people throughout history have done, and look where they ended up. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see where the rest of this arc goes. And I can't wait for... I wonder if the anime will ever get to this point, because the next confirmed season is going to hopefully finish up the very first arc of the series. But we'll have to wait and see. I'm very excited to see what happens next.
Now it's a good time to move on to the final manga of the episode that we'll be chatting about, and that is Kowloon Generic Romance. This is kind of a low-key manga, but for those of you who don't know, this is by the same mangaka of After the Rain, one of my personal favorites. Another underrated one, but man, is that a really well-done seinen. A lot of people kind of confuse it for a romance. It's not really a romance, it's more of a redemption story. So if you're really into those sorts of things, definitely recommend. But with Kowloon Generic Romance, which is, what's his face? It's like, what's his name? His name is June something. So obviously I'm a fake fan if I don't know the mangaka's name. But this manga, fairly new, came out in November, and it is a bi-monthly manga. The translations have been kind of weird recently. At first they used to keep up with them. Then they started like having odd breaks in between, and then there was like a whole sudden dump of chapters, and now for this month, we haven't gotten a single one, which has never happened before. We usually get chapters every single month translated, so this is a little odd. Hopefully this won't happen for long. If this does, then we'll add a new monthly manga into the mix, which I definitely want to add Vigilantes as one of the lineup. I'm currently catching up. I'm pretty far behind. I'm only on chapter 5, but anyway, we're talking about Kowloon Generic Romance. So what's it about? You have this dystopian, as they describe it, it's a dystopian future like romance, and not everything is really as it seems. Obviously, this podcast is filled with spoilers, but if I convinced you to read it just from that, go on ahead. Otherwise, be warned, there will be a shit ton of spoilers. So, we have Kujudai, and a lot of us believe that she is a clone. Me, personally, I don't think she's a clone. I'm pretty sure she just has amnesia. I don't know why a lot of the fan base just believes she's straight up a clone. Probably because it is a dystopian future, but it's not like they have all the highest technology in the world. You know, it's not like they're using holograms or anything like that. So I don't think a clone is necessarily it. Kujudai would always say like, oh, this is the other me, you know? So I really think that makes more sense. So that something happened to her within the past year, and she doesn't remember too far back. Like our current Kujudai, she doesn't remember too far back as to what the heck she even did. And this current Kujudai has a way different personality from past Kujudai. And we actually got a full dedicated chapter to when her coworker and ex-fiance, so sad, Kudo, he was just remembering a time when he was in Kujudai's apartment, and they were just, you know, they're falling in love. And it's sad, because even though we've only met past or original Kujirai twice, she was amazing. Like, just a fun-spirited woman. She'd joke around, and Kudo used to be all nervous and stuff around her. And hey, I would too, because she's an amazing woman. But again, she had so much life to her. She was really outgoing. She had very interesting things to say as well when it came to like nostalgia and love. Just, you couldn't look away. It's sad that she's not around. I do love current Kujirai, because I love myself a good kudere. But she is nothing like past Kujirai. Which is why I'm not too sure if Kudo will ever fall in love with current Kujirai. It's very sad. I really wonder how much this is eating him inside, because we actually see there's this new doctor in town, and this guy's a snake. He's a sleaze. He's disgusting. I think we all want to give him a good old-fashioned kick to the fucking face, because he is handsy. And he straight up went to Kujirai's workplace, had a little chat, because he's like working with them now. And he's just putting on a whole show for Kujirai. And Kudo knows this. And he's like, hey, stop. You're making her uncomfortable. This is all pretty weird. But the doctor doesn't listen. No, what does he do? He takes his gross, nasty ass snake split tongue and shoves it right down Kujirai's throat, man. Just, that is just disgusting. Right in front of Kudo. Right in front of everyone. Like, even the doctor's assistant saw this. And she didn't care. What? Hello? Do you not see the sexual harassment in the workplace? I don't mean to be that guy, but that's exactly what happened. Like, hello? My God. Disgusting. Ugh. That guy's weird. I'm trying to figure out this guy's deal. He seems to have a pretty good idea as to who or what Kujirai is. Because he took interest in her immediately once she mentioned about her quote-unquote crow's feet, which aren't crow's feet, according to him. And that she doesn't have memories, like much memories of her past. That really turned the guy on. Oh boy, he's just so handsy. I hate that. That is disgusting. Can we just give him a good kick to the face, please? Who's with me? Oh, Lord. And so now we're kind of just in this weird spot right now, because there's more setup. There always seems to be setup going on, because we're always meeting new characters. There's always like some sort of, or even like a new set introduced, because now we have one of their friends. I forgot her name, but she's that tiny one. She works over at the movie theater, and they just sold her like a new place. So that's going to be important somehow, unless they just wanted to use it for the metaphor that they were talking about. Yeah, it's just, what the heck is going to happen next? I feel like we don't know the true plot of the story. I thought we did once we got the twist with the fact that current Kujirai isn't actual Kujirai. But, some of the chapters can be kind of plain. It's like, okay, why did we get a whole chapter dedicated to house hunting, right? I felt like that could have been shorter. I do like Kujirai's one friend, though, the one who's trans. She's hilarious. She's always a joy to be around. I love her. I gotta start remembering more of these guys' names. I'm so sorry. It's what happens when it's bi-monthly. You forget some things. I gotta start leaving notes. My bad, guys. We'll do that for the future. But as for the main plot, we're not there yet. We have our premise of the story, of course, but we all know stuff's building up. When it comes to the doctor, Kujirai herself and her past self, her possible budding romance with Kudo, still a little hard to say about that, if that's even going to happen. I don't know, maybe maybe we have to have Kujire go back to her original self. That'd be cool. And obviously, they always mention Jean Terra, because there's something weird going on with Jean Terra. We know that this is a dystopian future because obviously the original Kowloon walled city was destroyed back in like the 80s or 90s, and it was real. That whole walled city where all the towns are all smushed in, it's a whole like you can look up pictures. It's literally like a box. And this was a town. Everything was smushed in. But in this version here in the manga, of course, it's advertised as the dystopian future where Kowloon walled city was never blown up, and people still live in there. You know, people are still like moving in. There's always new stuff being built. It's just strange. There's definitely a bunch of things that they're hinting at that's going on behind the scenes, but we're just not too sure what. I don't know, maybe it's all a simulation done by Jean Terra. Imagine, it's just a simulation. Cop out just like that. Oh, wow. All right, nice. Thank you, AJ, so much for coming on to the very first episode of Monthly Manga Cast. I definitely would love to have you back on in the future if you're interested.
I would definitely love to come back. I will accept any open invitation. This has been a lot of fun, just kind of going off and rambling.
Oh, of course. Yeah, no, we had some pretty good theory crafting there, right?
Yeah. Stuff that I didn't even think about until we were talking about it. But that's always what's fun about stuff like this. You need somebody else to bounce off of in order to really flesh out some of your ideas. And I always love talking with you, Sloan. You're the best.
Oh, thank you, AJ. Oh, I love talking with you too, man. You guys, make sure you check out AJ on his channel over at The Cartoon Cipher. They make fantastic video essays. I will leave a link in the description to their channel, as well as Mr. AJ Cosplay himself's personal Twitter if you want some very nice, flavorful cosplays, if I do say so myself. Seriously, you've been doing great work.
I'm trying. Gotta do something while I'm stuck at home for now, right?
Donate to his Patreon. Do it. You won't regret it. Do it.
Please, I don't want to go back to work.
Well, I hope you guys also enjoyed the very first episode of Monthly Manga Cast. Big thank you to my artist as well, Sally Adia, for creating the new logo or like the avatar for the podcast. I absolutely adore her work. Even my regular avatar that I use all the time, she designed that. So there will also be a link in the description to her stuff. She does commissions, so please hire her for stuff. She's great. And make sure you stay tuned for next month's episode, as it will air on the last Friday of the month, which is August 28th. Yes, and with that episode, our special guest will be Logan from Taserlad, which means you guys best be caught up to Act Age, because oh boy, is Taserlad a huge fanboy of Act Age. And that's all for this episode, guys. Make sure you like this podcast if you want more episodes, because I sure want to make more episodes. And it's just great to talk about manga again. Man, it's been so long. I used to do episode reviews, chapter reviews, weekly for manga. Oh my gosh, that was 3 years ago. Wow. All right, guys.
Time flies.
Yeah. I'm your female otaku. Sayonara.
Bye.